Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program, Capital Beat. On the sidelines of the Shangri-La Dialogue Security Forum in Singapore, India's Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan, acknowledged the loss of Indian air assets on the first day of the war without quantifying the losses, after which he was targeted viciously on the social media by right-wing trolls aligned with the BJP. Now, opposition says that this information shared with international media should have been shared at the all party meeting first. Now, has the right wing ecosystem undermined the credibility of the CDS? Second question is, did MEA and the armed forces desire deliberately as a strategy to acknowledge the losses? Has government failed to manage the media narrative? And is it the beginning of another political battle around Operation Sindoor after the CDS interview? Joining me now is Dr. Aftab Kamal Pasha, international affairs expert and diplomat, joins us this evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Pasha, for joining. We have Siddharth Sharma, independent media analyst, who joins us. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for joining. And I'll begin with Siddharth, to you first, because you told me that you have to leave. What would you really say that has the government failed to manage the media narrative? Because earlier, if you remember, when the military officers were holding a press conference, they also said that, yes, we don't deny, we don't confirm about the losses. Then Vikram Misri also indirectly acknowledging the fact, and now CDS acknowledging the fact. So either this is a strategy at Singapore to disclose about the losses, or has the government failed to manage the narrative? How would you look at it?
Yeah, not denying something and accepting something are two totally different things. We know that even during the Operation Sindoor, when the Air Marshal, the DGM or DGM Air Operations, Mr. Bharti, was asked certain questions about the Air Force losses, he did not deny it, but he did not accept anything. Now, the Chief of Defense Staff accepting, quantifying it, as you rightly put it, makes it's a clear indication that between then and now, we also know that the military is such a disciplined unit in India that it does not speak out of turn. So, if the Chief of Defense Staff has chosen to speak about it, wherever he has chosen to speak about it, that also means that it has the consent of the government. That consent was not there during Operation Sindoor when we saw Mr. A.K. Bharti was there. It was nearly the same question. If you see the question on maybe it was on 10th of May, just before the ceasefire was announced, when Mr. A.K. Bharti was on live television, somebody asked him about the losses of aircraft of Air Force, and he did not deny it, but he did not accept it. He gave a roundabout kind of an answer that yes, in a combat there are going to be losses, but all our pilots are safe, etc., etc. Now, suddenly, that it's a similar question that was asked yesterday by the Reuters correspondent, and the Chief of Defense Staff chose to answer it in a totally different way, quantifying the exact number, how what mistakes, tactical mistakes India did, how did we rectify it. That goes on to show that between Mr. A.K. Bharti's statement of May 10th and yesterday's statement of Chief of Defense Staff, the government had given the military consent to go about to accept these kind of issues. Now, that question is now very open for discussion. It is very open for what do you say, opinions, whether the Chief of Defense Staff should have spoken in India or outside. Now, let's take the Chief of Defense Staff later. Isn't it true that the day Pahalgam happened, the very next day, the government of India called for an all-party meeting, and the all-party meeting unequivocally supported the government of India? So, isn't it the government of India's job that once that Operation Sindoor was over, the Prime Minister chose to come on national television and announce uh, all the things like why ceasefire happened, how the ceasefire happened, how Indian forces demolished first the military targets, then the military first the terror targets, then the military targets. So, if the Prime Minister of India has so much time to speak to the nation, isn't it right? Wouldn't have it been logical for him to also call for an all-party meeting, because the all-party meeting itself gave him the mandate to take decisions, and the all-party meeting supported him. So, wouldn't it have been very natural and right for the government of India to call again a all party meeting, and in that meeting the all the details of the activities that the military, the operations, the details of the operations, the what the CDC said yesterday to Reuters, that could have said by the CDC to an all party meeting, so that would have been more appropriate. Now, obviously, the government of India, the present dispensation of India, doesn't. It's an opportunist dispensation. We know when the water was up to their necks, near their noses, they asked for a. They called for an all-party meeting. Once the ceasefire happened, they just dumped it. Now the problem is that everyone knows that only two questions are being asked by every Indian, whether he lives in India or whether he lives in New Zealand or South Africa or England or Canada or US. Any Indian across the globe has only two questions in mind. How come during a nationalist government, a government chosen on the plank of national security, did Pahalgam terror event happen? How come that happened during the regime of a nationalist government? The second question everybody asks is that when Pakistan was on its knees, as per the government of India and also as per the military operations, and even independent analysts saying, agreeing that there are satellite photographs showing that Pakistan's military installations right north from Skardu to south in near Karachi were demolished by the Indian armed forces on the 10th. So when Pakistan was on its knees, how come India accepted the ceasefire? These are the two questions that every Indian has in mind. How come Pahalgam terror happened, and why did India to agree to a ceasefire? Now, because these questions are very difficult for BJP to answer, because in the first question on Pahalgam, it has accepted a security lapse. On the ceasefire, it has gone totally quiet. There is a deafening silence on its part. So now, somehow or the other, it wants the narrative to shift from these difficult questions for itself. We all know that the military of India during that 88-hour operation stood out exemplarily and showed that it had all the wherewithal, whatever it needed to bring Pakistan to its knees. So all the credit for Operation Sindoor was going to the military armed forces, and all the discredit and all the disappointment, be it Pahalgam disappointment or ceasefire disappointment, was coming into the basket of BJP. So now the government of India, I think it was a tactical move by government of India to tell the chief of army staff that since and we also have to accept that the chief of defense staff, he is not a player, he is like a coach of a team. So a coach of a team always does not he is not a jingoistic person. He assesses the game, and whatever shortfall is there, he asks his team to perform better in the next. For example, yesterday Punjab Kings defeated the Mumbai Indians in an IPL match. So the Punjab Kings coach would obviously be very happy about the victory, but he would also be asking his strike bowler like Mr. Arshdeep Singh, why did you give away 44 runs in 4 hours without a wicket? So there are issues that he wants to iron out. So military being a professional unit, the chief of defense staff being the coach of a team which has played, he would always want to come out in the open and say things. This is what has happened, because that is how military operates. A professional doesn't uh, uh, doesn't run behind name and fame. A professional runs behind success or failure. So this entire Operation Sindoor was a success on part of the military. The military wanted to come out and give the details. Now the government of India had gagged it till now. Very conveniently, the government of India might have given the chief of defense staff freedom to speak when he was outside India's shores. Obviously, because the government of India doesn't believe in its own Godi media that they have cultivated over the last 10 years. Because, and that is why the chief of defense staff, it was a very clear cut. It was not an admission of anything. My understanding is that for any product to come out well, there is always a process behind it. Without a process, there is no product. Now, people like us, how do you say, the fans of a cricket team would not want to go into the process. They would only want a product, the victory. But the players who have played the match, they have gone through a process, and they will always speak about the process. So the military yesterday, the chief of defense staff only gave away how that process about the Operation Sindoor went. And now, because that is what BJP wanted, so that once these things are out and he accepts or he admits to the fact that there were certain tactical mistakes from our side, there were certain air force issues from our side. Now, the entire BJP ecosystem or the troll army is now targeting the army for some kind of failure. Please mind, it was not a failure. It was a match well won by the army. Oh, the only fact is that it was not 10 wickets, 1 or 2 wickets fell in between. But the fact that the match was won I think the BJP is trying to change the narrative because of those two questions that the BJP is very unable to answer. One is why Pahalgam happened and why ceasefire happened. They want desperately to divert that, and that is why with these kind of statements from the CDC, Chief of Defence Staff, the entire troll army or anybody in India will start discussing these issues, that how many Rafales got shot down, what happened to our army, what was our tactical mistake, whatever it was, we came out victorious and the credit goes to the army. So I think BJP is desperate that these question marks on it, disappointment of the people of India on acceptance of ceasefire, those questions were becoming difficult for BJP to answer. That is why I think this was a Trojan horse kind of a moment. It asked the Chief of Defence Staff. He, however, as a coach, he openly wanted to be transparent. So he wanted to be transparent in India, but they gave him permission to go and become transparent somewhere outside. And now the entire discussion, nobody is speaking about why the BJP government accepted a ceasefire when Pakistan was on its knees. Rather, everybody is asking what tactical mistake happened on 10th. On 7th, it might have been a small tactical mistake, but on 10th it was rectified and Pakistan was bombed from Skardu to Karachi. So I think that is what BJP has been desperate, because uh, after Operation Sindoor, everything that the BJP is throwing out as a narrative, as a story, is not sticking. Everything, the two basic questions are still coming back to haunt BJP in its day or night. One is why Pahalgam happened, second is why ceasefire accepted. So to divert this issue from these issues, I think the Chief of Defence Staff was made a scapegoat, I think. But then I would personally still feel that he as a coach performed excellently well and the team won. It's the credit entirely goes to the army. Of course, in a skirmish, in a combat, you might lose a few. It's like a team winning a match. It might lose 1 or 2 wickets. Does not matter. 3 wickets, 4 wickets can be lost. But still, the match was won. So I think it's we have to understand that this is BJP's desperate tactic to uh, divert questions from that were the uncomfortable questions coming towards it.
All right. So I'll
Neelaji.
come to Dr. Pasha. Yes, yes. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you so much. I think you have to leave, so I'll let you
Yeah.
go. But I'll come to Dr. Pasha. Dr. Pasha, how would you really see CDS's interview and the very fact that the opposition is questioning that why this interview was given on a foreign soil? Now, many people are saying that, sections of the media were insecure. They were infuriated that why he gave interviews to the foreign channels and not the Indian channels. So is that the genesis of the problem? Or you feel that media could have been managed better? Why did CDS choose to speak over there? It's is it Does it look like a failure of the media management?
No, I see it as failure, incompetence, and inability of the government to accept facts. See, the government has been pushing hardline narrative, raising expectations that Pakistan is a failed state, it is on the verge of collapse, and we are going to take back Pakistan occupied Kashmir, from Prime Minister to Defense Minister, Foreign Minister. Everybody was telling the people here, and any number of foreign visitors, delegates, etc. So the Pahalgam incident was seen that the government would utilize this tragedy to teach Pakistan a lesson. And when the initial euphoria was focused on 9 terrorist camps, the second wave of attacks and the government media's attention was focused that, Pakistan is on the verge of collapse and disintegration, and that the POK is well within our grasp. So the entire narrative which the government was trumpeting, collapsed like a pack of cards. And the government was exposed. It stood naked between what was promised and what little was achieved from their narration and the raising of the expectations. So this is the first credibility of the government, that they raised the expectations to very high level, and they were not matched by the reality, even though the military was apparently given a free hand to achieve the targets soon after the Pahalgam incident. The second one is, if the army was doing well on the military front and we were giving blows after blows to Pakistan from attacking their key installations. This sudden acceptance of the ceasefire has raised another question about the performance of the Modi government, and that is the strategic partnership which this government has been highlighting, and Prime Minister Modi in particular about his dear friend, whether he is really a dear friend, and whether Prime Minister and this government is wrong in putting too much faith on the United States and particularly on Donald Trump, who it turns out now that he's equating Pakistan with India and praising the Pakistani leaders or enemy country as a great country, great leaders, so on and so forth. So the people are in a state of shock about this government's incompetence, mismanagement, and raising of expectation and achieving very little, and taking credit for the military's sterling achievements on the front, and suddenly preventing them from what they are assigned to do. So in that way, there is a mismatch between the government's promises, expectations raised, and the reality, which people find it difficult. And obviously, the government is in the dock trying to defend the indefensible. That is how there is in this CDS statement, Mr. General Chauhan, I see the beginning of disaffection between the military and the civilian leadership, which is trying to use the military for its ideological purposes, that the military is for the cross-border terrorism, to contain terrorism. Military has a much larger responsibility of defending the borders, territorial integrity of the country. It is not just an instrument of the military, of the government, to target few terrorist operations centers in Pakistan. And that too, 21 were identified and only 9 were attacked in the initial onslaught
But
of the airfares.
now, do you think that this CDS interview could turn into another political battle? Because now the onus is more on the government that they come out and clarify. Now that the CDS has clarified this in the interview about the military losses, Vikram Misri has spoken before that. The military press conference which was held, they've said that we cannot confirm, we cannot deny about the losses. So is now there'll be more pressure on the government to come up with a special session where they more explain, uh, especially at least once after the multi-party delegations return to India?
I don't think so. From the very beginning, from the very start, I am of the opinion that the government is hiding facts. It doesn't want to come clean on its promises and what little it has achieved comparison to the liberation of POK, and why it has accepted ceasefire under the pressure of the United States, and why Donald Trump is repeatedly taking credit for arranging the ceasefire, and why is linking trade between the two countries to this resolution or ceasefire of the conflict. So in that way, the government, I don't think it will continue to be in a denial mode. I don't think they will call a special session of the parliament, or they will have an all-party meeting, because it will stand exposed. Already the Congress party chief Kharge has been lambasting the government on this issue, and Jairam Ramesh and various other parties. So now if they hold a special session of the parliament, very uncomfortable questions will be asked, not only between the civil-military relations and the gap between what the political leadership is telling and taking advantage, especially the Prime Minister, of Operation Sindoor during his several roadshows in Gujarat and Bihar and elsewhere, and that the statements made by 3 top military people, that is CDS Chair Mr. Chauhan, and then Air Chief Marshal AP Singh, who has again now told the nation that you see, we are losing the talent, and the best of people who should join the Air Force and the military are not joining, they are going abroad, and that the salaries have to be increased and proper environment has to be created. He is Mr. the air chief is raising very uncomfortable questions to the government, not only about procurement of weapons, but also about the environment in which, difficult environment in which the military has to function and deliver delivered to the high goals which the political leadership is assigning them. And also AK Bharti's statement that all the pilots returned home. He is hinting that we lost the planes. So all these three individuals have shown sufficient light on the incompetence of the government and the inability of the government to accept the reality and tell the people what actually happened during this Operation Sindoor, because the Prime Minister he doesn't talk anything about the losses of the aircraft or why he accepted the Donald Trump ceasefire, and why the military was prevented from going ahead with the liberation of P&K, which he himself had articulated on a number of issues. Even now, post first phase of Operation Sindoor, they are saying that our only goal is to liberate POK. But people now have come to know the gap between their hollow promises and the reality on the ground, that the military was prevented from achieving this goal under American pressure. And so the people are saying that if Modi is under pressure from America, it is either because of Adani or the Khalistan issue or the trade issue which he has agreed in advance. So people are ascribing motives, and his image has taken heavy dent, and he is seen as not in control of affairs, and like his several election promises about 15 lakhs to the accounts of people bringing black money and so on and so forth. This Operation Sindoor also is seen as one more attempt by the Prime Minister to manipulate the military's achievement and the whole issue of Pahalgam to his advantage and project him as a great leader here, that he has not acted under pressure from the United States.
No, but one last question, and then we will wind up. That this whole controversy about the CDS now being trolled on the social media, he's being. I mean, the right wing trollers are saying that he should not have become a CDS. It was a wrong judgment to have a retired officer, to become a CDS. Probably he doesn't understand the nuances. Why did he go abroad and speak on this? How did the government allow? Now, the right wing system is putting the CDS under so much pressure that is the government now in a very tricky situation. What does it do here? The government and the military and the CDS, they look on two different pages, because the government is trying, it seems, to be hiding the losses, and CDS at least has implied that he's speaking about the losses.
Yes, this shows the gap between the military and the political leadership. You see, this trolling business which happened with the foreign secretary and his daughter, it is on the same lines what CDS is facing now. You see, on the one hand, the RSS and BJP leadership and Prime Minister Modi in particular, they let loose all these trolling and media haunting against individuals who speak up contrary to the views of the political leadership. What the military leadership is saying that it is professional acknowledgement of the harsh reality that there were losses in terms of planes coming down, although in our own territory there was no denying of this fact from all these three sources, at least two credible sources, which the civilian leadership is not willing to accept, and this is creating a credibility gap of the military. The military doesn't want to get into this image of misreading the image of the military, because in the long run this will do more damage to their credibility, because they have an outstanding force, military machine, to stand up to the enemy's challenge. So in that way, the people's faith and confidence in the military is unshaken, whereas what the information has come from the military has exposed the political leadership and their game plan to manipulate the military to its advantage. So the military is standing aloof and trying to protect its image from being tarnished by the political leadership. So in that way, the government, you see, the people are smart enough to read between the lines what the military is saying, what the political leadership is saying, what foreign media is saying. All of these things, any amount of whitewashing by the political leadership will only uh, expose its incredibility and credibility, and also the question is legitimacy, and it will have long-term impact on
Right.
its performance.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Pasha, for joining on the Federal. Thank you, sir. Thank you.